of that. In the Vajrayana tradition, the bodhisattvas are like the attractive principle that we aspire and emulate towards, and then the dharmapalas are the active force that are like, get on with it, like don't mess around, don't waste a moment. You know, this precious human life is the highest honor to be bestowed upon consciousness. Do something worthwhile that is of service to the world. Yeah, I feel that that's what my art is, and that's been emphasized so much throughout my life with all these opportunities to present my work in all these different environments, and you know, as I said, these overtly psychedelic culture events like Burning Man and Boom Festival, and encountering all these people that are switched on to other dimensional possibilities. And so I've had so many reflections from people constantly that reaffirm a lot of what's going on for me in my own creative process in ways that aren't really so blatantly a part of the work. It's not like, this is the subject matter, this is what it means, it's obvious. You know, sometimes it's very esoteric and very occult. But when I have these experiences with people where what they're sharing with me is so synonymous with what my own internal experience is, and what has happened for me internally throughout the process is then reflected in another in the exact same way, that's how I know that there is something else at play. There's like another force that's moving its way through that is using me as the medium for it to present itself.
Who's your teacher?
I've had a lot of teachers throughout my life.
First of all, parents.
Yeah, my parents. Yeah, they were really supportive of me growing up. It was I was so fortunate to have that. You know, as these awakenings were happening for me, and my parents were like, you know, of course, yeah, that sounds good. You know, they weren't trying to box me into a framework that wasn't my own. They were really very, very open. And
so
yeah, they weren't like, you can't be an artist, you won't make any money, you got to be a lawyer instead. You know, I didn't have any of that.
Because they're artists also.
Yeah, and surrounded by a lot of artists and musicians. So, I had a lot of examples growing up of people that really lived it to were supported for their art. You know, so it wasn't like, you know, I had to dream of it. It was like there were people that lived down the street for me, and you know.
It's so important to have a support from closest people, because many people, many artists don't have this support.
Yeah.
And
I feel so fortunate to have had that right from the start. I had a running start right out the gate.
Maybe you have some advice. I don't know, like some medicine words
for me,
to people who don't have this support.
For me, it was really developing the feeling of trust. You know, that confidence had to be cultivated from within, but for me, there was so much just a high magic in what was happening with what I was creating, what was happening for me personally throughout that process that gets infused into what I'm creating. And then what happens after that has been created, and the series of events and the people that I meet and the connections that happen. And from early on, it was incredible what was happening. And it's only become more incredible. I mean, to the point of just absolutely blown away by how directly related my own imagination of myself is into what happens in my life.
Like,
I mean, without a doubt, it is intrinsically related. And so that just deepened that sense of trust that, you know, and from that original experience when I was a teenager, the sense that I had at the time was, you know, as long as I dedicate everything to this, everything will work for me. Yeah, it really settled me into a place of comfort in my heart. And it's just been something that has been deepening and developing throughout my life. And I've been so fortunate to be able to be recognized by people that I've admired for decades, like just the highest level of inspiration for me in art and music, and people that now consider me amongst their ranks and give me the same accolades that I would give them.
So the Alex Gray also your friend?
Yeah, he's been a great mentor and ally for me and big support over the years.
To resist your creativity is to be out of alignment with the cosmos, because the cosmos is infinite creativity.
And just seeing the way that how to live your life wholeheartedly as an artist and be supported, and to be able to be at peace with all the energy that comes with that and all the attention, but without any extraneous ego put on top of it, to still remain humble and grateful.
Did you have some obstacles in your life?
Absolutely.
Yeah?
No, it hasn't all just been like a golden platter of ease and grace this whole time. I mean, there have been some deeply painful, existentially painful periods of my life.
Like a big hole in the...
Yeah, but in retrospect, those were the greatest catalyzing moments that brought the deeply unacknowledged parts up to be seen and purged and released. And so it gave me such a sense of appreciation and the value of hitting the bottom and going through the deepest, darkest parts of yourself, because I had to go through that. I had to see those parts in order to change the course of my life. I wouldn't have done so had I not been put into such an uncomfortable position at stages in my life. Or comfort can breed complacency, but when you're put into positions where things are really brought to the deepest challenge is where you're forced to address things and change things that you wouldn't change otherwise. I spent years as a professional tattooist, and it was something that really took over my life. It was something that I could travel with. It was something that I could always make money from. It was something that was always available. And so it became this all-encompassing medium that took over my painting and everything else. It was taking me further away from my own visions. I was having to cater my creativity to other people and other people's visions. It was something that I was feeling like was gonna have to change. I'm gonna have to either do less of it or drop it entirely or take a break. But I wasn't doing that because it was just something that was just running on its own, and it was like it would just keep running unless I changed it, and I wasn't. And eventually I got to the point where I had developed so much crippling pain in my forearm, my wrist, and it wasn't just physically painful, it was like deeply existentially painful because I didn't know anything else other than my creativity. And so to find myself in a place where even holding a pencil was hard. I mean, it put everything about my life and myself and my confidence and everything was in question. You know, it's like, if I'm not here to do this, what am I here for? And it made me just fall into some deep depression and anxiety and just doubting everything and questioning everything. And it felt like I had done it to myself because I wasn't listening. And I had some amazing opportunities to become involved with plant medicine ceremonies, and it really was the greatest gift because it allowed me to have the supportive environment to go into that place of real cathartic, emotional depth, to really acknowledge the root cause of why this is taking place. It wasn't just because I was tattooing and that I wasn't listening and to myself, and it was something much, much deeper, and it was so deep that it extended beyond my own personal lifetime and my upbringing. It was like something way deeper inside the human condition. It was like I was able to see visually in my own body the condition in human consciousness that had given up its own divine spiritual sovereignty and the right to be the most powerful expression of self, to find the deepest sense of worthiness. All of that was in there. It was like I had manifested the pain as a byproduct, as a symptom of this quality of consciousness that, like I wasn't believing in myself. And so I created the conditions to observe what it's like to not, to validate the lack of belief in yourself. And so through these opportunities with this plant medicine, as I was able to see how deep that is, and to love it, and to forgive it, and to thank it for the opportunity of showing me that so clearly, and that I had that work had to be done from the deepest part of the self. It wasn't going to be given to me from outside. It wasn't going to be in the form of circumstances outside of me that were going to change. It had to change from seeing it deep inside and bringing it to the surface and surrendering it and letting it go, and to choose to be free and to choose to invite in the highest sense of self-empowerment and spiritual sovereignty, to claim it. My spiritual teachers and opportunities to put my attention into my art again in a new way. And that's when I met Alex Gray. It was soon after that. And then from that meeting, there was a whole series of events that just cascaded out through being invited to events in Europe and being invited to present art alongside my heroes, like the people like, the greatest embodiment of creative expression that inspired me so deeply. I was now able to exhibit amongst them, show my work on the same walls, and be greeted by the same, series of fans. And I see the relationship between doing that inner work and finding that reconciliation and that resolution in the heart, and then life just changes to meet it as a vibratory phase change. The hologram just shuffles and shifts to accommodate the new change in vibration within the self. And it was, there's been so many experiences throughout my life that just like shined that in my face, that I have to have that as a reference to just not doubt. And by not doubting, I'm given experiences that validate why I shouldn't doubt. And it's like if we fear, then we'll get experiences that validate why we should be fearful. If we're in a state of trust and surrender and unconditional love, then the world around us gives us experiences that validate why we should love. And so that's been something that has happened as a result of my artwork for me. And it's as a result of being in that condition and being making myself available for the river of eternal creativity that is just expressing itself throughout all of nature, throughout all of the universe. It's an ceaselessly endless unfurling of novelty and beauty and synchronicity and vibrational coherence and symbiosis with itself. And it's our mind and our ego narration that puts a blinder to it and thinks that we're small, thinks that we're not having an effect on anything, and that we're not worth anything, and that we're out of sync with that. But there's ways to create the conditions to remove that and to come into alignment with what's happening all around us. And for me, that's my creative act, is my spiritual practice. Because there's so much that can affirm that continuously throughout my life. And it's not an easy thing to share, because there are events in my life that I think for most people's context would be unbelievable.